Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. You know, I don't often use the phrase, be careful what you wish for on this show, most because if a song that I like gets big, there's very rarely a huge negative consequence of that, but also because I've been generally pretty lousy at predicting the Hot 100 anyway these days. But if there is a week where that might actually apply generally, it might be here, because if we take a look at yet another new #1, well, let's not mince any words, currently ruling the top 10 as of this week, Rockstar by Post Malone featuring 21 Savage. And while I was uncertain about the longevity of its competition, as much as I don't like it, Rockstar might actually have some staying power, at least until a major album release disrupts everything. Its streaming is solid, the sales are good, YouTube is competitive, and it spent the week gaining real traction on the radio. More importantly, I don't see any of the precarious signs that weakened Bodak Yellow by Cardi B down to #2. Most thanks to sales taking a pretty big hit while streaming and YouTube remained remarkably solid, but while its airplay did make gains, it did show signs of possibly peaking soon, which could be good news for 1-800-273-8255 by Logic featuring Alessia Cara and Khalid back up to #3. Yeah, I don't really see it getting higher with those sales numbers, but streaming and YouTube are still solid, and if possible, it's got even more radio momentum. Now, this might seem surprising that Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift also gained a slot up to #4 this week, given how hard its sales and airplay are dropping despite stable enough YouTube, or that Feel It Still by Portugal the Man broke the top 5 with good sales and airplay dominance but little to no streaming, but that's more thanks to losses above it. Yes, Mi Gente by J Balvin, Willie William featuring Beyonce took a sharp dip down to #6 as sales crashed hard, streaming was not stable, and radio traction seemed to sputter a little bit. And this sudden weakness places it against Too Good at Goodbyes by Sam Smith back in the top 10 at #7, with pretty measured gains in all categories. Even though I'm not really much of a fan of the song, this will probably have some traction and staying power. And on that unfortunate note, Thunder by Imagine Dragons is also still here at #8, with huge sales and the radio getting on board in a big way. It only really fell back a slot because of Sam Smith, let's get real here. Similar case for Sorry Not Sorry by Demi Lovato down to #9, which might not have the sales but compensates with a little bit more streaming and better airplay. Again, I would expect this to stick around. And finally, somehow still clinging to #10, Unforgettable by French Montana featuring Sway Lee, which hit a peak on the radio and will likely be unseated the second that it faces some real competition. But where we aren't getting that competition is in our losers and dropouts. And in the latter category, there's really only 2 songs to talk about. No Such Thing as a Broken Heart by Old Dominion, which frankly isn't really worth much thought at all. And after a chart run that was way better than anybody could have possibly predicted, especially with no video, Redbone by Childish Gambino. And speaking of easy predictions, our losers are as expected. A Boogie with the Hoodie took hits for his new arrivals last week with No Promises falling to 93 and Say A going to 94. Friends by Justin Bieber and Blood Pop continues to free fall to 73, as does Feels by Calvin Harris featuring Pharrell, Katy Perry, and Big Sean to 78, and DNA by BTS down to 98. The only 2 real surprises here, They Don't Know by Jason Aldean experiencing a shot of weakness to 79, and Humble by Kendrick Lamar, which looks to be finally heading on its way out to 33. Considering that the run it had, it's still pretty impressive that it's doing as well as it is. Unfortunately, impressive is the last word I would use to describe our gains, because we got no returning entries this week, and nearly all these gains blow. It's a bad sign that Perfect by Ed Sheeran might actually be the most inoffensive at 22, because from there, Gucci Gang by Lil Pump picks up a huge streaming momentum to 32, Hills and Automobiles by Chris Brown, Yo Gotti, A Boogie with the Hoodie, and Kodak Black is up to 59, Relationship by Young Thug and Future hits 66, and Plain Jane by A$AP Ferg rose up to 86. Now, none of these are in serious contention for hitting any year-end list, thankfully. They'll probably get caught midway between years. That happens. Again, I'm not complaining here, but that also doesn't mean I need them soundtracking the next couple months, so I wouldn't mind seeing these drop back considerably. Ugh, whatever. Maybe our gains will have some promise, starting off with #97, Too Hotty by Quality Control featuring Migos.
Scattered too hot at them, put that little bitch on the molly. She fucked everybody. Shotties on shot at little nigga done caught him up body. Don't know nothing about it. Scattered too hot at them, put that little bitch on some molly. She fucked everybody. Shotties on shot at little nigga done caught him up body. Don't know nothing about it.
So if you're gonna have to follow me on this one, if you've been following Atlanta hip-hop at all, you've probably seen the label Quality Control behind a couple of really big names, which in 2017 has really meant Migos. And yet, instead of releasing this song as an actual Migos track, every single one of the members was credited separately as featuring artists, while the label got the main credit. And I can't be the only one who thinks this looks slimy as hell, right? This is different than a producer getting a credit over the singer. This is the label getting the main credit off of hearing a verse that Offset was teasing months ago that could have easily wound up on Culture Proper, and now instead the label is likely getting the lion's share of the profit over the actual artist on the song. But okay, fine. Was the snippet that we got worth it? Well, okay, the production's cool enough with the hazy female vocal ebbing back and forth against the blocky trap groove. But let's be honest, does anyone really care what Migos are saying enough to realize that they're just referencing a wrestler in the WWE and can't actually connect any of the subject matter to said wrestler? And the subject matter is just ugly at this point. The casual homophobia in Offset's verse by referring to certain women, then comparing the money that he's throwing to dandruff, which is just gross, and then how Quavo seems to be getting lazier and lazier with every verse. And that's before we get the pretty pronounced date rape implications in the hook, where they give this girl Molly and then she gets screwed by everybody. Okay, look, I'm not going to deny that Migos has had a great 2017, but with every single they've proven to have less and less dimension as artists, and I wouldn't be surprised if they hit that 15th minute a lot sooner than you would otherwise think. And yet, speaking of that, number 95, Lights Down Low by Max featuring Gnash.
Yeah, now I'm feeling you breathing slow. 'Cause baby, we're just reckless kids, trying to find an island in the flood. Oh, turn the lights down low. Oh.
So this is a little ironic. Even though Hotty Allen just released a new album, the artist that he was actually featuring a few years back on People Keep Talking, probably where you most hear this artist, is the one that actually lands a charting hit, with a song that was on an album that dropped in April of 2016 and a remix that came out in October of 2016. And while I had issues with Hotty Allen's last project, The Hype, I think I prefer nearly anything charting from that album than this, which features Max doing his best quivering Bruno Mars circa 2011 impression, with a fair amount crib from Charlie Puth and Shawn Mendes for an acoustic love song that's trying to be soulful and mostly falling painfully short. Now, to be fair, the lyrics aren't precisely bad per se. Gnash doesn't even really embarrass himself like he did on I Hate You, I Love You from last year, but it's not like they're distinct or interesting or can distract from how little charisma neither artist is bringing to the table. And it's all the more stark when they pile on the heavier drums on the final hook, and Max just cannot have the bass or pipes in his voice to hold his own against them, even with any of the filters they add on. Yeah, okay, the falsetto, it's fine, but go beyond that, yeah, I gotta be honest, not a lot to recommend here. Let's hope this does not become a hit. Number 91, Dear Hate by Maren Morris featuring Vince Gill.
In the grass, I see you in the morning, staring through the looking glass. You whisper down through history and echo through these halls, but I hate to tell you, love's gonna conquer all.
You know, it's hard for me as a music critic not to feel kind of cynical about songs made in the aftermath of tragedies, but I don't blame Maren Morris for this one. This was a track that she actually wrote 3 years ago, recorded with Vince Gill in 2016, and for some reason it was cut from being included on Hero, presumably not being produced by Busby and actually sounding like a country song. And it was only released in the aftermath of the Las Vegas shootings, with all the proceeds going to charity. And thanks to an overwhelmingly positive response from her audience, it actually landed on the Hot 100. And yeah, it's a really damn good country song. The rattling acoustic tones are light enough to support both Morris and Vince Gill, who frankly sounds better than he has in years. And the thicker swells of richer guitar in the bridge are pretty damn stunning stuff. It really is beautiful. Now, just like its spiritual cousin from Eric Church a couple years back, Kill a Word, there is a part of me that feels like this isn't quite as specific as it could be to really cut deeply into its audience, especially considering that it's talking more about abstract concepts like hate. But at the same time, the references on that third verse have resonated in the American psyche for so long that it probably manages to connect regardless. And on top of actually sounding like a pretty damn good country song, yeah, it might not hold traction for long, given again it was a charity single, but kinda hope it does. Really good. Number 72, Heaven by Kane Brown.
Just can't wait to go. Saying how it's gonna be so good, so beautiful. Lying next to you in this bed with you, I ain't convinced. Cause I don't know how heaven could be better than this.
And yet on the flip side, we've got Kane Brown going through a very soft, mid-tempo, primarily acoustic pop country song that's so generally underwhelming and sedate that I'm honestly struggling to find anything to say about it. Yeah, the chimes were a cute 90s touch, but why on earth do you feel the need to tack on drum machines and fake snaps for the first verse and chorus where you're gonna bring in real drums anyway? That's beyond me. Along with some of those weedy, plucked accents when you already have perfectly good, richer guitar and banjo tones already anchoring a lot of the mix. And I can't be the only one who thinks that slicker this song will get, the less it actually manages to fit with Kane Brown's rougher baritone in his delivery. I mean, for pop country, this is serviceable, it's inoffensive, but he would sound a lot better with a more rollicking pickup, or at least something with a little bit more weight and texture. Believe it or not, Kane Brown has actually kind of grown on me as a singer. I'm as surprised as anybody. It's just a damn shame that he's not getting better material. I mean, this is okay, but it should be better. Number 60, How Long by Charlie Puth.
You've been creeping around on me while you're calling me baby. How long has this been going on? You've been acting so shady. I've been feeling it lately, baby.
So I'll be the first to say that Charlie Puth actually has done some reputation repair with Attention in 2017, which has turned into one of his most consistent hits as a pretty decent pop song, mostly thanks to that bass groove. But it's the follow-up that was gonna worry me, the fact that he would be able to sustain momentum and not just default to bland garbage, and thankfully, this is not. Now, granted, it very much feels like Attention Part 2, as much as you want to avoid that, with a healthy amount cribbed from mid-80s R&B and turn of the millennium boy band songs, especially with that final hook. But you know what? A good bass line can redeem a lot in a song like this, and the funkier guitar tone, it's a good compliment. Even if the backing vocals can in the post-chorus get a little bit more annoying, and Charlie Puth's falsetto isn't really winning me over. But at least lyrically, it's treading in slightly more interesting territory, with a hook from the girl's perspective targeting Charlie Puth for cheating, and he doesn't really have much of an excuse here. But what feels kind of odd is that the song doesn't really go beyond the accusation, and Puth just pretty much admitting it outright on the verses, not really going anywhere else, and not much of an apology, which leaves the emotional dynamic feeling just a little bit stilted. You kind of expect a little more here. I don't know, I certainly prefer this direction for Charlie Puth in comparison with nearly everything else he's ever done, but I don't quite see this clicking as well as Attention did with the popular conscience. Not bad, but I want to see a little more. Number 55, Pray by Sam Smith.
Pray, maybe I'll pray. I have never believed in you, no, but I'm gonna pray.
So we're now in the full rollout for singles from Sam Smith, and this is his second one, aiming to bring in more gospel influences, opposite production from Timbaland of all people. And even though I was personally unconvinced that Sam Smith could convincingly sell gospel, I was willing to give him a chance here, and well, I don't think this is that bad. Sam Smith certainly seems more convincing approaching religious angst than many I've heard recently, especially when he's more clear than ever that he's an outsider coming in. And hell, he's certainly approaching it with a solemnity and more maturity than I think we've heard in some time with really any sort of religious themed music, mostly helped by him sticking to his lower register and letting his pretty tastefully arranged production carry a lot of the weight, along with the gospel choir that does build up pretty well with a pretty good crescendo. And the writing is pretty solid too. I'm a little bit on the fence about how he threw in the lines how everyone prays in the end, but he's also not exactly wrong with that, and the song doesn't really feel cavalier about approaching religion either. But as a whole, I guess I just feel a little bit distant from it, maybe because of the production. Like with most Sam Smith songs, it feels a tad too stiff and lacking any sort of edge to really get under my skin and move me. And considering I normally prefer my gospel to feel a little bit more ragged and rougher, think a group like Algiers, this doesn't really quite connect as much as I would like. Definitely can appreciate this song. If it paves the way for, say, like Hozier's sophomore album to notch some hits whenever the hell it drops, I will be thrilled for that, but until then, we'll see. This isn't bad. And finally, number 20, Almost Like Praying by Lin-Manuel Miranda and artists for Puerto Rico.
It's almost like praying. It's almost like praying. It's almost like praying. It's almost like praying.
So as I've said in the past, I'm not normally a fan of charity singles. Quote many punks, they can feel like transparent exercises in self-promotion while ignoring the root causes of the issue. But at the end of the day, if the cause it brings in any sort of help that is desperately needed for people who are in real times of crisis, especially if and when established institutions have utterly failed in doing enough because the POS in chief has at best a casual disinterest and at worst expressed outright racism toward the people there, I'm willing to give it a pass. It also helps that it's being organized by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Puerto Rican himself, who has proven tireless and completely sincere in his dedication to his people and to help that shows some real earnest altruism. So as long as the song is good, I would have no problem with this charting at all. And well, it's interesting, I'll say that. But in terms of charity singles, I can see more people ultimately focusing on the disaster itself and that relief than on the song. Most because you can tell that Lin-Manuel Miranda went out of his way to blunt any of that star power that could overshadow the relief that comes with getting Louis Fonsi, Jennifer Lopez, Camila Cabello, Joel Ortiz, Ruben Blades, Fat Joe, Mark Anthony, Dessa, and plenty more to contribute to a song that is nearly all in Spanish. But you know, that could be a double-edged sword. You avoid the self-promotion accusations, and I respect that, but now the song has to stand as larger than the sum of all its parts. And while the foundation of an interpolation from West Side Story's Maria, that definitely helps, I think the choice to name all 78 towns in Puerto Rico does a pretty potent job connecting to the island itself. I'm not really crazy about the song itself from a composition or production standpoint, just not a lot really stands out for me beyond the main melodic flourish on the hook, which, yeah, that does kind of stick with me. But on the flip side, I've heard a lot of charity singles that are either incredibly sloppily produced or sound so completely indulgent, and this doesn't really fall into either category. I'm not sure how effective it will be because of that, but it's good in that vein. So at the end of the day, if you want to donate to help Puerto Rico here, this is a fine enough way to do it, and the song is decent, I guess. I don't mind it. So yeah, best and worst, really it fell out pretty easily this week. D or Hate by Maren featuring Vince Gill is easily the best, and Too Hotty by Quality Control featuring Migos is easily the worst. And at this point, I've got no idea what's gonna happen in terms of disruptive albums in the future, so we'll just see what clicks. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse. I'll see you next time.